right, so let's talk about Beacon. But a question first. Who has ever used a CMS before? Just please raise your hand. Okay, yeah, almost everyone. That's good. Okay, so let's learn about Beacon. Beacon is a CMS for Phoenix LiveView. It's a new research and development project by Dockyard. And Dockyard is known for the services we provide, but Dockyard has been investing into R&D projects like Beacon, Dockyard Academy, and LiveView Native. And usually when talking about CMSs, the first question is why? Why another CMS? We have so many options in the market, so why another one? And one of the reasons behind Beacon is if your company or team is running a LiveView or Phoenix project, you most likely have the knowledge and the infrastructure to run Elixir projects. So why not reuse those resources? So if you need a landing page or a marketing page or a site, so you should be able to keep using Elixir and LiveView. So that's the gap we are solving with Beacon. But in order to be valuable, Beacon has to follow some constraints. It has to be easy to use, not only by developers, but also by content creators. And we want to avoid deployments. So you don't need to create a file, submit a pull request, wait for CI, wait for review and approval, and start a new deployment. You should be able to change a page and apply those changes live as soon as possible. And those pages, they need to serve dynamic data. Some CMSs, they render static HTML pages, but in Beacon, we are providing and serving dynamic data for all pages. And of course, it has to be SEO friendly, which means it has to be super fast. Because a key component for search engines is to present the content for of your sites to users as soon as possible. So with those constraints in mind, Mike Beams created the first prototype for Beacon, or you could say a proof of concept. And the idea of this prototype was to solve a problem, to find a solution for building modules dynamically and compiling and loading those modules at runtime. Because if you want to serve pages as fast as possible, the best solution is storing those pages in modules, in memory. So that's the best way, the fastest way to serve pages. And that was a huge milestone for the project, because we could say, hey, the initial idea works. Then I joined Dockyard to work full-time on Beacon, and nowadays I'm leading this project. And my name is Leandro Pereira, or something like that. And yeah, I never know how to pronounce my own name. I have been working with Elixir and LiveView since the very early days, maybe a bit risky, but it has been a very fun experience. And I believe that open source is key to our community. And so I have made some contributions to different projects like Elixir, Phoenix, LiveView, Ecto, and some others. Stuff like the open browser function in LiveView or the explain plan in Ecto, some other stuff. I gave a talk in 2020 about this subject, about open source. That was a remote talk, so it's my first time on stage. I hope everyone have a great time. And I keep this website called liveviewdemos.com. It's a collection of tweets, or whatever you call them now, but it's tweets about LiveView, what people are building with LiveView. Okay, so we had a prototype, but the next milestone for the project was we need to release a website running on Beacon. So in March of this year, after implementing new features, Beacon, and making it more stable, we released the new Docker website, and it's running entirely on Beacon. And even though we don't have a stable release for Beacon yet, we are using Beacon daily on Dockyard for the website, and we are having great success. I heard that live demos may not work sometimes, but why not try to do some? Let's see. So here we have the Docker website, and as you can see, I'm refreshing the page, which is establishing a socket connection because Beacon is a live view application, and the navigation from one page to another, as you can see, it feels instantaneous. And that's because we have a single live view handling all the requests in Beacon, which means we can patch the templates from one page to another. So it's really fast, and all those pages are serving data from the database. Like, for example, this page, we are getting the data from the database, and it's really, it just loads instantaneously. So this page, it's a HEEx template. All the pages here are HEEx templates, but the blog posts that we have are written in Markdown. So Beacon supports HEEx templates and Markdown by default, and technically we can support other formats and other engines as well, and still serve with LiveView. So that's the experience we want to deliver with Beacon. So, okay. All right, so the question is how Beacon works under the hood. And to understand Beacon, we need to understand how LiveView render works. And here we have a simple LiveView, which is going to render this page, as you can expect. But the interesting fact about this LiveView is if you look at the render callback specification, you see it's expecting a rendered struct, which means the HEEx is essentially compile the template for us, the hello ElixirConf string, and building that struct for us. That struct holds the information, the static and dynamic information for the page, so LiveView can apply the diff for the page. And you are not supposed to write these structs manually, or at least you don't need to, but returning this struct is going to render the very same page as before. So keep that in mind. You get back to that struct later. All right, so in Beacon, we have an application called Beacon Live Admin, where you can create layouts and pages and components and some other resources. And you can write your templates for pages using a code editor. We are using a library called LiveMonaco editor for the code editor. And a big thank you to the Livebook team. That library is based on their amazing work, especially Jonathan. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And this admin interface, it can run in a cluster. So if you have multiple sites running in multiple nodes, it will scan all the sites in your cluster, so you can manage all the sites together. So for example, you can deploy your sites close to your users and run the admin interface behind a VPN, for example. So let's say you create a page, create a template, save the changes. That template is stored in the database. So it's basically a string. And the reason is you don't need to handle a file system or a different kind of server. You can just use your database. So suppose you create a page, create a template, how Beacon will transform and load that template and actually display the page. And this process in Beacon is separated into two stages. First, we need to load the pages, and then after that, we can actually render the pages. So let's suppose you are creating a home page, or you are creating a page with a static path, and this time you're using a markdown template, or even a page with a path with dynamic segments. Every time you create a page, Beacon will build a module. We call this module a page module. It does have some functions, but the most important one is the render function, which is going to compile the template for that page. And that module has a unique name. So it goes through each one of the page and will compile and load that module for each page. So whenever you start the application or publish a page, that's the process that happens inside Beacon. And also it's important to say here that the templates here, especially the HEEx templates, HEEx templates are just Elixir code. So they may not be safe because you can execute Elixir code, but we do have a library, it's called safe code, that you check. You traverse the entire template and check for unsafe code. So you can still use HEEx templates with this extra level of security. All right, so after compiling a page module for each page, then the last step is populating this ads table. The key is the path, and we also store some metadata for each page, like the page module name. So this table, it works like a router, because in Beacon we need to add and remove pages at runtime, so it's more flexible to have this table. It's a router table. All right, so the loading process is done. We got the template from the database, compiled a page module for each page, and populate this router table. Now, suppose you are visiting this blog post, and since Beacon is a library that runs in your Phoenix application, which means you can use Beacon in existing Phoenix application. It's not, it doesn't need to run just the Beacon library. You can still use Beacon in your application. So you are supposed to call this Beacon site macro in your router application, which basically is a catch-all route to a live view called PageLive. And PageLive is responsible for assigning a layout, for loading data, and loading all the resources for each page. But the most important function, again, is the render function. The first step is giving a request path, like this one. We need to find the page module to serve the page for that request path. So we go in the router table, and then we try to pattern match the request, the path, and also the dynamic segments of the request path until it finds a match. So this process is similar to how Phoenix router works, but I would say it's a simplified version of Phoenix router. And then we found the page module. And the next step is actually rendering the page. So we just call the render function, passing assigns, which is going to return the render struct, which, as we know, is the struct that LiveView is expecting to render the page. So you can see the page and read that blog post. All right. This design seems simple, but we actually had to go through some iterations. The first design we had, we used to have a single module for all the pages. So we had multiple render functions. That design was simple and elegant because we just used to pattern match the request paths, right? So we didn't even had a router table. But the problem was the Dockyard website has more than 700 pages, right? Because each blog post is a page. And that module, it had like thousands of lines. So it was demanding too much memory to compile. So every time you had to start the application or publish a change, it was a problem. So it was not scaling very well. So the second design was, okay, let's break it down into smaller pieces and avoid the compilation. So we used to compile the template string and save the template AST into a ATS table. The problem was, for every request, we had to evaluate the AST. And that function is not super fast, at least not fast enough for Beacon. So it was not scaling very well. And the design we have now, as you can imagine, you still have the same problem as the first design does, because we still need to compile more than 700 modules, which also demands too much memory. So the solution was, okay, let's build and load the page modules, but not the render function. The render function, it only has a placeholder add-in and not loaded. And then when a request comes in for a page, we actually replace the template. Well, we replace the placeholder with the actual template on the request. So let's try another demo, like why not? So here I have another instance running for the Dockyard website. And I have this page, the work page, it's rendering just fine, as you can see. And here I'm connected to that node. Let's connect again, because it lost the connection. And then I'm gonna run this pipeline. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna run this pipeline to unload the page. Right, so here we can call page module render, which is gonna return not loaded. So the template is gone. We don't have the template here anymore. So if you go back to the page, hopefully when I refresh the page, the template is still here, the page is still here, and the render function now returns the render struct. So we are actually compiling the template on the request, and you can barely notice it's happening. It's really, really fast. So of course, that happens only once, and then the next request is going to use the cached version that is in memory in the module. All right. So I want to share some numbers how Beacon is performing, and the first numbers are about the ads, the router table. And those numbers are for the actual Dockyard production website. And like I said before, we have more than 700 pages, and the router table is consuming less than 300 kilobytes, so not much. And finding that process to match the request path to find the page module, finding the last record, not the first one, the last record on that table is taking about 20 microseconds. And it's really microseconds, not milliseconds. So it's actually constant time. So that table is flexible and it's super fast. Now, the next numbers I have, I'm running a site on a small fly.io instance. It's shared CPU instance with just 1 GB of memory. That site has just one page that is exactly like the Docker homepage, but I have removed the database calls because I want to benchmark the rendering time, not the database. And that test, I'm running that test for 5 minutes with up to 1,000 users. So what I'm trying to do here is to break the server and see how LiveView and Beacon handle that situation. Start with memory. As you can see, it's not consuming too much memory, but the most important number here or information here is the memory utilization is stable. Since we are storing everything in memory, it's important to not leak memory. So after 5 minutes, as you can see, it's pretty stable. And another number that is not in the slide here, the Dockyard production website is consuming about 500 megabytes to serve more than 700 pages. So from one page to more than 700, as you can see, is not consuming too much memory. So that's interesting. HP request. That benchmark is not really fair, to be honest, because we are not benchmarking the live navigation. So the initial HP request is slower than live navigation. So, but either way, after 5 minutes, we got more than 200,000 requests. And, we got more than 200,000 requests, and we didn't have a sudden drop of requests. And the CPU utilization, it was expected to max out because it's a shared CPU. And of course, that increased the average response time. But the important number that we have here is that none of the requests failed. Even running this test several times, none of the requests fails. So that's the most important information here. So the takeaway here is if you give proper resources to your site, which of course depends on the size and visitors, if you give proper resources, which is not much, you can serve pages with a low response time. And if for some reason your site receives way more visitors than you're expecting, you can still serve the pages in a reasonable time. Another information, Beacon was about 5% slower than a regular fresh live view application, which is important because we want to provide features on top of live view, but it should be close as possible to a regular live view application. So we can serve features like meta tags, schema, A/B testing, error pages, and so many other features, but the performance is still like a regular live view application. Another metric that we have is the page speed. That's application by Google, and like the name suggests, it's some benchmarks, performance benchmarks on your website, and that report is for the actual Dockyard homepage. And as you can see, we are getting almost perfect scores for mobile devices and perfect scores for desktop. And we have some metrics down on the page for performance, accessibility, best practices, and especially SEO. So the takeaway here is LiveView and Beacon, they are actually a great fit for search engines. Not only Google, but all search engines. All right, so another project we are working is a drag and drop page builder. It's actually a visual HEEx template editor, and Miguel is one of the key persons working on this project. And let's have the last demo of this presentation. Okay, so here I have a site running locally. It's the Docker homepage, but it's running locally. And here I have the actual page builder. And here we have some text. And before using the page builder, let's go to the live admin interface. And here I can see and change the template. So I don't know if you can see it. Let's increase the size. Okay. Let's replace this text with a Elixir expression. Say, instead of hi, let's say hello, right? And let's confirm it's saving. Let's see. Okay, there we go. And then we can publish these changes. And back to the site, you can see the changes live. So it's really easy to make changes and publish those changes. Now, back to the page builder. Refreshing this page. Refreshing this page, you can see the actual changes here as well. And now we can select this element, and it's saying that it's an Elixir expression, so we can have some Elixir code here. So let's say hello ElixirConf. All right. And if we go back to the page, to the original source code, the HEEx template, you can see the same changes here. So that means we have two-way integration between the code editor and the page builder. And since the page builder is a visual editor, we can have some nice features here. Like, for example, we can select this element and see all these CSS classes. So let's remove some, or actually, let's remove all of them. And let's replace with, let's say, text purple. Okay. All right. So, and since Beacon supports Tailwind by default, you can use any Tailwind class here, and it's going to preview the changes. And not only changing elements, existing elements, we can also add new elements to the page. So let's add this link element here. And as you can see, we have this navigate attribute because that's a function component. That's the link function components. So we can have here regular HTML elements and also function components. So let's say here, let's change to ElixirConf.com. Okay, and let's try to add some classes here. I'm not a UX developer, but let's try to make this look better. So let's have some background, some color, some spacing. All right, yeah, looks good. Now back to the page. Let's see those changes here. So as you can see, the attribute for this element now has changed, and the link function component is here. And you can also notice the template is formatted. So whenever, like every change you make on the page builder, the resulting template will be formatted for you. So let's change the content of this button. Let's say visit Elixir. Oh, we have some nice autocomplete here. All right, so we have the changes here. Let's publish the changes. And now let's see how it looks like. Oh, and there you go. So like we have added a new button, which looks nice, like in a minute or so. All right, so that's the page builder. It's still early stage, but it should be. We should have some release soon, but it's still early stage. All right, so the reason we don't have a stable release yet, the first version, is we still have some edge cases to solve, and we want to avoid breaking changes as much as possible. So we need to solve those edge cases first before we can release the first version. And also, we are working to make it more friendly to newcomers with documentations, guides, and blog posts. So if you want to know more about Beacon, you can keep an eye on the Dockyard blog. And if you want to know more about Beacon, you can go to the Beacon CMS organization in GitHub. Contributions are always welcome. And Beacon is a new project, but we got some really nice contributions from amazing people. And hopefully I'm not forgetting anyone, but a big thank you to all the contributors that we had so far. And if you are looking into starting a new project with Dockyard, or have an integration with Beacon, or have some idea, reach out. We are here at ElixirConf, or around here, or you can just go to the Docker website on the contact form. So thanks so much.